The 2024 NFL Draft is approaching, and with the combine finally over, we have a very broad perspective on this year's players. So now that we're officially in draft season, it's time to look at our big board of the top 30 players in this class. Starting right away, number 30 belongs to Ladd McConkey. The wide receiver out of Georgia is one of the most well-rounded prospects out there, and his physical game would be very appreciated by a lot of teams out there. At number 29 is JJ McCarthy. The media is trying to get this guy to be a top 5 pick, but I honestly do not think he's nearly as good. He isn't a bad quarterback and he has some really good talent, but his ability to read defenses and handle pressure isn't what I would call NFL ready just yet. He could very well thrive in the right situation though. Up next, Keon Coleman. He's been rather quiet during the draft process, but going back and watching his tape, he's definitely a top tier player. His game is unmatched, and with the right coaching staff, he could be one of the best wideouts in the NFL. Moving on at 27, Troy Fautanu. He was already a borderline first round prospect for me, but his combine performance definitely boosted him a little more. He's big, explosive, and frankly a great scheme fit for most NFL teams. Up next is Bo Nix. He has quite a lot of talent and experience, but despite that, he hasn't shown anything that would put him as a top 15 or top 10 prospect. He can be great, but he would need a very good situation in order to completely exploit all the potential he has. Moving on, Kool-Aid McKinstry. The cornerback out of Alabama could very well become a force to be reckoned with in the NFL, but there's no doubt he would be a risky pick. I think he could make a case to be top 20, but I wouldn't really agree. At number 24, Troy Franklin. I honestly believe this guy is heavily underrated, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if he were to become a top 3 wideout of this class. The potential he displays is insane. He just needs to find a team that fits him well, and if he does find that, he will 100% be a dangerous player. Moving on, Terrion Arnold. He's been grinding this draft process. What else could explain his astonishing rise in draft boards? Arnold is now considered amongst the top corner prospects, and I'm all in for it. Brian Thomas Jr. is next, and I think he could even be a little higher up. The receiver out of LSU is one of the most explosive players out there. You get him a top quarterback, and this guy will have the entire league on skates. At number 21, Quinyon Mitchell. The Toledo cornerback has been relatively silent in the draft process, but he's letting his game speak for itself, which has been boosting his draft stock non-stop. He has one of the highest upside of this class, and hey, whoever gets this guy will be getting a steal. Cracking up the top 20, JC Lanham. He's falling off the boards not because of himself, but rather because other linemen shining. The guy out of Alabama is still a top tier prospect, but I think he will ultimately end up being a late first round pick at this point. Now we have Byron Murphy. This guy has some insane potential, but in reality there's some production missing. Taking him would be a bit of a risk, but if developed correctly, the Texas product could turn out to be a generational talent in the trenches. At number 18, Laiatu Latu. This guy probably has the highest ceiling out of all defensive ends in this class, but he still lacks some production. His explosiveness on the edge could very well help him become a top tier defensive player in pretty much every single team out there. Up next at 17, Jer'Shan Newton. The defensive tackle out of Illinois plays surprisingly explosive given his size. He would fit right in most defensive lines in the NFL, and whichever team takes him will be guaranteed to get a long-lasting starter at D tackle. He does seem as a safe pick, and his upside is just enormous. Moving on, Jackson Powers Johnson. The center out of Oregon is now considered to be the best one out there. His production is not only amazing, but also undoubtedly consistent, which is probably the most important attribute to thrive in the NFL. Cooper DeJean is next at number 15. I really like his style of play, and I would say he has one of the most balanced game styles out there, which would help him adapt to the NFL way faster than most of the rookies. I believe this guy could end up being the best cornerback in this class, so he's definitely top 20. Up next, Taliese Fuaga. The offensive lineman out of Oregon State would be a day one starter pretty much in any team out there. His talent is out of this world, and I believe he's one of the most NFL ready prospects of the entire 2024 class. At number 13, Jared Verse. He's arguably the most consistent player in college football, and his explosiveness is no joke. Verse could very well become a team's #1 edge rusher before you even notice it. I'm serious. Moving on, Amarius Mims. His stock has been rising quite a lot recently, and I believe he will in fact become a top tier player in the NFL. This guy has the size, the technique, and the ability to make every single NFL play, so just give him time to prove himself once drafted. Up next, Nate Wiggins. He was already a high-end prospect, but his combine performance definitely boosted his rankings even more. Wiggins is fast and explosive, explosive, capable of making every single play, and that's why I think he's the best cornerback of this class. Getting into the top 10, Jayden Daniels. This may be a little low for the Heisman winner, but despite his stats looking amazing, he still doesn't seem to be great outside of the physical game. However, he does have insane loads of talent, so if coached properly, this guy is undoubtedly capable of becoming a Lamar Jackson 2.0. At number 9, Dallas Turner. He stepped up for Will Anderson, and surprisingly, I would say there are two very similar players. Turner has all the talent needed to be successful in the league, and I think it ultimately comes down to the system he plays in. If paired with the right coaching staff, this guy will be a game wrecker. Moving on, Olu Fashanu. He was already solidified as a top lineman of this class even before the combine. His skills will definitely be put to use wherever he goes, and I think he will actually be drafted top 10. It would be rather surprising if he doesn't. At number 7 is Rome Odunze. If it wasn't for Marvin Harrison, everyone would be drooling over this guy's tape. Just gonna leave that out there. Odunze is one of the most talented wideouts in the nation, and I'm sure he will be a star wherever he goes. Up next, Drake May. The thing with him is that he doesn't display as much potential as the guys above him do. However, I think I can say with some confidence that this guy is the most NFL ready quarterback out there, so don't sleep on him. Cracking up the top 5, Brock Bowers. The tight end out of Georgia could turn out to be a generational talent and a top tier player if developed correctly. He's pretty much guaranteed to be a top 10 pick, and whichever team gets him will easily be getting a stud. Up next is Malik Nabers. It's honestly so fun to watch him play, and his skills are out of this world. He has the potential to be the best receiver of this entire draft class, and I actually think he has the highest floor out of everyone else. On to the top 3 now, Joe Alt. This guy has the size and skill set of a Hall of Famer, but most importantly, he has a cool name, so he'll definitely be good. Just kidding, but leaving that aside, this guy does have the potential to be an insanely good football player. Moving on, Caleb Williams. Even though he's insanely talented, I do think he's slightly overhyped, and it will definitely be very tough to live up to the expectations. But still, he's the clear-cut number 1 quarterback and obviously a top 3 prospect of this class. And finally at number 1, Marvin Harrison. Many people say he's here because of his name, and that's just not true at all. Harrison is one of the most talented receivers to ever play college football, so he definitely has the potential to be one of the best receivers the NFL itself has ever seen. So if he goes to a good team, better watch out. By the way, if you haven't checked out my new merch, I would recommend you do that now. I promise you won't regret it. And so that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, remember subscribing is always a great idea. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.